Have you ever wanted to find out how one of the most iconic villains of your childhood became a villain? Or better yet, do you really want to feel bad for a character that you've just hated your whole life? Well, look no further. Disney has you covered. This is 2014's Maleficent. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. And for those of you that need to hear it, this is just a movie. All stunts are for the sake of story, and shouldn't be attempted on your own. Viewer discretion is advised. We start off with our narrator telling us that we're going to hear an old story from a new point of view. We look over two kingdoms that are terrible neighbors. One is made up of humans that are never happy with what they have, but the other kingdom is called the Moors. The Moors are made up of interesting creatures of all sorts of nature. We meet Maleficent as a child who's actually a fairy, and she's playing with her magic in the trees. She uses her magic to heal the trees, and she leaps off to take flight. As she flies around the Moors, she says hello to all sorts of creatures. Eventually, she comes to meet with the three fairies, who tell her that the border guards have found a jewel thief, and it turns out to be a human. Even fairy folk have border control? They look like the Ents from Middle-earth, but I don't think I'd be messing around with them either way. While Maleficent meets with the jewel thief, she meets Stefan, who's just a boy around her age. She has him give her the jewel, and she drops it into the water to return it to the Moors. When she escorts him to the border, Stefan tells her that he'll come back to see her, and he finds out that his iron ring actually burns her. So he tosses it away without a second thought, and makes his way home. Time passes, and Stefan comes back to visit Maleficent on a regular basis, and it seems that the hatred between fairies and humans might be a thing of the past. More time passes, and Stefan gives her the kiss of true love. Well, this is a Disney movie still, so we all know that this isn't going to be the happy ending it should be. It's almost cruel to start a villain backstory with such a hopeful beginning. Someone's gotta die somewhere. The two of them grow up, and they start to have different priorities. Stefan starts to be tempted by the spoils of the human world, and Maleficent becomes the strongest fairy and protector of the Moors. She sits alone waiting for Stefan, but the king of the humans has heard of her power rising in the Moors. The king meant to strike her power down, and soon, she sees the king and his men make their way to the Moors' border. Maleficent goes to meet them at the border, and she warns them to turn back. The king doesn't listen, and he tells his men to bring him her head. These puny humans think they can take on Maleficent. What about the trees riding rock warthogs? Or the grass dune worm that just popped up? Yeah, you heard that right, I'm not making these descriptions up. This is literally like every magical creature came out of the ground to eat the puny humans. When Maleficent goes to attack the king, he touches her with iron gloves, and she begins to realize that her secret had been told. The king and his men retreat, and that night, the king tells the men in his chamber that he'll name whoever kills Maleficent king when he dies. Stefan is a chamber boy for the king, and he hears this vow. So, he heads to the Moors to call Maleficent, and he warns her that the king wants her dead. The two of them sit and catch up, but Stefan drugs her with his wine. When she's asleep, Stefan prepares to kill her, but he can't bring himself to do the deed. Instead, he settles for something else. In the morning, Maleficent wakes up to find that she's alone, and her wings have been cut off. This is somehow worse than killing her. Not to mention Stefan can hear her wails while he gets ready to leave the Moors with her wings. This movie's already succeeded in making me feel no pity for Stefan in Sleeping Beauty anymore. This is all his own fault. Stefan delivers the wings to the king, and Maleficent creates her iconic staff to help her walk around the Moors. She makes her way to some ruins on the hill, and she begins her life of solitude. Later, she finds a farmer about to beat a crow to death, but she decides to save the crow by turning him into a man. After the farmer runs away, Diaval pledges to be her eternal servant. Back at the palace, Stefan gets crowned king, and Diaval returns to Maleficent with the news. When she finds out that Stefan took her wings to become king, her powers manifested in the most powerful dark magic the land has ever seen. The next day, Maleficent returns to the Moors to reign over the fairy folk, and a dark time comes over the land. Then the little brat is born. Quite a time jump, but I'm already mad for Maleficent. Alright, we've officially made it to the prologue of Sleeping Beauty, and we can even see the pink, blue, and green fairy show up to give Aurora their gifts. Just before the green fairy gives her gift, Maleficent crashes the party, and she gives Aurora her infamous curse. She tells the audience that Aurora will fall into an eternal sleep, but after Stefan begs her in front of her court, she decides to add that only true love's kiss will wake her from her eternal slumber. Stefan has all of the spinning wheels burned, and he entrusts Aurora's care to the three fairies. The fairies take Aurora to a cottage in the woods, and they begin their charge. Diaval tells Maleficent where they've taken the baby, and she toys with Aurora from outside the window. The fairies turn out to be rather misfit mothers, and Maleficent actually ends up taking care of Aurora with Diaval's help from behind the scenes. This movie did a great job of making the fairies seem like complete dimwits. Granted, they weren't the brightest in the Sleeping Beauty movie, but they're downright stupid in this movie. Now I really feel sorry for Maleficent and Aurora. It is fun to watch Maleficent toy with the fairies though. As time passes, Stefan continues to try and break down the barrier that Maleficent has raised between their two kingdoms. But she still proves to be too powerful for any man. Why even bother making her more furious? Stefan finally gets smart enough to use iron, but he's really just infuriating her at this point. Meanwhile, Maleficent just toys with the fairies. It's funny to watch this evil woman basically playing pranked with these fairies. Maleficent seems to have a soft spot for Aurora though. She manages to save her from falling off a cliff, and she even lets her hug her when Aurora stumbles upon her in the forest. As Aurora grows, so does Maleficent's intrigue in her. Eventually, Aurora grows enough to question what's on the other side of the thorn wall. But the knights on the other side are trying to get through as well. Maleficent turns Diaval into a wolf hybrid to scare them off, and she uses her magic to finish off her show of strength. When she goes to touch the armor, she realizes that it's made of iron. After all of that, Maleficent takes Aurora's sleeping body through the moors to see the beauty that resides there. Hell, I want to go to the moors. Where's my fairy forest to retreat to? Soon, Aurora realizes that Maleficent is hiding in the shadows, and she has her come out. Maleficent thinks that she'll frighten Aurora, but she ends up thinking that Maleficent is her fairy godmother that's been watching over her for all of these years. She introduces Aurora to Diaval as well, but when Aurora gets too excited with these introductions, she puts her back to sleep and takes her through the forest back to the cottage again. Back at the castle, Stefan sits in a quiet chamber and he seems to have gone mad. The knights come in to tell him that his wife will die that night, but Stefan seems too preoccupied talking with Maleficent's wings. Meanwhile, Aurora is getting a fairy light show every night, and meets all of the fairy folk, who seem to be smiling for the first time since Maleficent lost her wings. When the one little troll hits Maleficent with a mud pie, I thought she was going to turn him into a worm for sure. Maleficent is that babysitter that gives the kid a good time before feeding the kid to a shark or something. One night, Maleficent tries to revoke her curse, but her curse was too powerful the day that she put it on her. Later, Aurora asks Maleficent about her wings when she had them. Maleficent thinks back to good memories, but Stefan wakes up to the sounds of Maleficent's screams from when he took her wings. He senses that Maleficent will be coming soon, and he goes to wake his men up to get back to working on preparations. The next day, Maleficent tries to tell Aurora about the curse, but Aurora tells her that she wants to live with her in the moors after her birthday. After hearing this, Maleficent tells her that she can move in now, and Aurora makes her way through the forest to tell the fairies about her plan. Lo and behold, it's time for a Disney moment. Here comes Prince Philip to screw up all the plans. Of course, love would get in the way. Just let her live with the fairy folk until her birthday. She can sleep forever with them, and just know that she's peaceful. After meeting Philip, something seems to have changed in Aurora, but Maleficent and Diaval are watching from the shadows. Diaval tries to tell her that Philip might be the answer to their problems, but Maleficent tells him that she cursed her the way she did because there's no such thing as true love in her mind. Aurora goes back to the cottage to talk to the fairies about her plan to move out, but the pink fairy lets it slip that they're going to take her back to her father the day after her birthday. They tell her that she's actually royalty, and Aurora goes to confront Maleficent about the curse she put on her. After finding out that she really did, Aurora runs away from her, and Maleficent is left to find Philip as a way to save Aurora from the curse she put on her almost 16 years ago. And just like that, Aurora rides back to the castle. It all goes to crap, just like that. If one thing had gone different, none of this would have happened. That's all it would have taken, one event out of place. Stefan has Aurora locked in a room, and he prepares for Maleficent. Out in the forest, Maleficent finds Philip and rides to take him to the castle. But the curse is calling Aurora to the dungeon where he had tried to destroy all of the spinning wheels. Maleficent's curse is too powerful though. It reconstructs one single wheel, and Aurora pricks her finger just as the sun sets. Maleficent takes Philip to the castle where Stefan has Aurora sleeping in her bed. She makes it through the labyrinth of iron spikes that Stefan made for her. That's a bit overkill, honestly. How's anyone supposed to get out of the castle now? You mean to tell me that everyone has to creep through this death trap just to go home? Once they make it to Aurora's room, Maleficent wakes up Philip, and he gets pulled into her room by the fairies who think he might be Aurora's only chance at waking up. They convince him to kiss her, and Maleficent watches from the corner of the room with Diaval. Finally, they kiss, but it doesn't seem to work. So the fairies throw Philip out, and they go on to search for Aurora's true love. Maleficent tells Diaval that she was right about there not being true love in the world, and she goes to Aurora's bedside to ask for forgiveness. Maleficent kisses Aurora's forehead, and within a few seconds, Aurora wakes up from her eternal slumber. Maleficent cries tears of joy as she looks down at Aurora smiling. Aurora follows Maleficent to the Great Hall, where she tells her that she wishes to live in the moors with her. It's a trap! Stefan had everything planned out for a very certain game plan. Once again, if any little bit had gone differently, it wouldn't have worked. What if she went down a different hallway? Was there a backup trap? As a last resort, Maleficent turns Diaval into a fire-breathing dragon, and he removes the iron net from Maleficent. She tells Aurora to run to safety, and Diaval continues to put up a fight against the guards that are surrounding both of them now. Stefan's guards surround Maleficent with iron shields, and she feels her power draining. Meanwhile, Aurora locks herself in a chamber that has Maleficent's wings, and they flutter to life. Stefan shows up downstairs completely clothed in iron, and he beats Maleficent down. Luckily, Aurora breaks the case that houses Maleficent's wings, and they find their way to her just in time. If you want to see a majestic scene, rewatch Maleficent's wings rebonding with her over and over. The music, lighting, and effects all mesh together perfectly, and it just gets better from there as she flies around the room. Stefan lassos Maleficent with his iron chain, and she drags him through the stained glass window. She flies him to the top of one of the towers, and she beats him down. Just before it's too late, she stops choking him and tells him that it's all over. Stefan isn't done yet though. He grabs onto her and they tumble over the edge. Well, obviously Stefan forgot that she has wings now, and so now he's dead. Not a shocker there. When the sun rises, Aurora looks out over the land from the moors, and she's happy to see Maleficent fly along the border and remove the thorn wall. Maleficent replenishes the moors to the site it was back when she was a young fairy, and she deems Aurora the Queen of the Moors, which proves that the kingdoms have been unified after all this time. Prince Philip shows up too, and all is as it should be in the end. Maleficent watches over Aurora and the others before taking flight with Diaval like she did back before she lost her wings. Then, the credits roll. I love this movie. I was so excited to find out that they were going to do it, and Angelina Jolie got the role. It was perfect casting, and you probably already guessed that I'll be doing the second one. But go ahead and comment if you'd like that too. Give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.